Season's greetings. Welcome to Converge Media. We are living in color today. My name is Deaunte Damper, and we are festive up in here. So remember to like, share, and subscribe because we are the Emmy Award winning channel Converge Media, and we are here with We Live in Color. And I have a special guest today. I'm so happy that she's here. Ever since I started the show, I said, "Sis, can you be a guest? Sis, can you be a guest?" And now here we are. Diamond Lil, how are you doing?
Hi, Deontay. I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Mrs. Claus, honey. It's
Ah,
giving Mrs. Claus. Can
I'm
we get
telling you.
into this?
Yeah, the idea for this was Sugar Plum Mary meets Mrs. Claus meets Black Excellence.
Yeah, okay. Black excellence, because you look wonderful.
Thank you. So do
Um,
you. I love this.
yes, listen, shout outs to champions.
Right.
Champions.
Shout out to Santa. I mean, I can't believe you're
Yeah,
not making toys right
I
now.
know. Well, I kind of delivered the wrong toy, so that's a that's a whole different story.
I know. I'm about to say, I don't know what kind of toys you're delivering out here.
Listen. So I'm just so happy to have you. Your advocacy work speaks for itself. But beyond that, right, is the journey. And I am just so happy that you're here. So happy that we have you. This beer is getting in my mouth. But tell us a little bit about Lil Diamond.
Yeah, so the name Diamond Lil essentially came from Mae West, the movie star, and her whole thing was that when she worked for MGM, she went to the owners and was like, "Hey, how much is the highest man being paid at this company?" And they were like $250,000, and then she was like, "I want to be paid $251,000." And the Diamond Lil soliloquy is like from the 30s. It's dated. You know what I mean? It kind of like puts this like white savior kind of, it's like a white woman against like a woman of like Latina descent. Like it's like basically she accidentally kills her or whatever. And like Mae West was able to build a career from just being in clubs saying the soliloquy from memory. And like that was something that just impressed people, and like her rash sense of humor. But I just feel like as Black people, especially as Black artists, reclaiming like racist tropes and stereotypes like in history, and like I just feel that it's time for a Black Diamond Lil, and I
Yes.
really believe that I embody that. I also just like really love Mae West. I mean, problematic things aside, she's done some
I
cool stuff.
wouldn't. I haven't heard anything about her being problematic. I just heard about her just demanding to be heard and seen.
I agree. I mean, I think that all women have like go through that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And did you grow up here in Seattle?
I didn't. I grew
Okay.
up in Huntsville, Alabama.
Huntsville, Alabama.
I did. Yeah.
Really? I
Yes.
have an ex from Huntsville, Alabama. No, I used to live in Pensacola, Florida, so I travel there, travel often through there. Well, through there.
So
Well,
you've been to A&M, like Alabama
I
A&M?
have. So
Mm-hmm.
can you like what was it like growing out in Alabama? A lot of our Converge family just left Alabama, Mississippi, just down south, and just how was it out there?
Honestly, I will say, like, I grew up in such a God fearing household, and like very, it was just so God, God, God all the time. And I wasn't really as aware of like the racial tensions in Alabama. I was really involved in a church family. And so I went to school, I came home, I went to church. I didn't really do much else. It wasn't until I became like a little older and like obviously like wanted to go out into the world a little more, like and go and play sports or like do things with friends, that I started to like realize like the discrimination. And like I had experienced it in school. I went to a school that was in the middle of basically nowhere, and I was the only Black student until first grade in
Oh
my
wow.
class. And I remember being, I honestly don't think I felt that it was strange at the time, because everywhere that I went, I stood out. Like I was, boisterous. I, was very much like, look at me, very flamboyant. And I was singing all the time. So anywhere I went, I was seen, heard, or felt, or tugging at someone's shirt, asking questions, curious about things. And so I just kind of was used to standing out. And I think that people treating me differently, it just kind of felt like because I knew I was different.
Did it feel normal? Did you feel like, oh, this is just how people treat me?
I think that my parents very much raised me to believe that I was, and and could do exceptional things and like was of exceptional, you know, exceptional blood. And I don't know that I really knew what that meant at the time, but I think that that was their way of sort of bolstering my confidence for what was to come, like as I gained consciousness to the reality of like racism in the South.
And throughout that process, so you already said you sung, so, and I've seen you dance. So were you dancing in high school, or was that, did
Yeah.
that just slowly come later?
So I went to, my mother is a dancer, and she, you know, I think everybody knows interpretive dance, grew up watching praise dancing. And so my mother, she led the worship team in my church at the time. And like, so I grew up watching her dance. And then it kind of came to the point where she would ask me and my brother and I, like, hey, I'm going to put on this song. Would you just move in the way that you feel led to move to it and see how you react, and like give me ideas, or give me ideas of your interpretation of this song. And so through that, I really learned like about connecting with music. But she was also like very like spiritual and like woo woo. She was very much a mom who would wake us up early, even on Saturdays, to do devotion and then to close our eyes and to imagine, you know, or meditate on things that we wanted, or just like allow our minds and allow ourselves to like sit in stillness, which as like a 6 and 7 year old child is super, super hard to do. But what it helped me establish was like a sense of what my imagination was. And it helped to kind of like sharpen the skill of like being able to picture things in my mind. So when I got older and like started to do, I know the question was dancing. I guess I kind of got
No, keep on going. I'm listening.
But when I got older and like was asked to do things like, well, how do you interpret this? How do you see this? And how do you feel? How does this music make you feel? It always translated to visions and like pictures and like, you know, move like just um stories. And, you know, that was just how I interpreted music at the time, and it helped me connect to my own art. So when I like started to do show choir and stuff, because I went to like a performing arts middle school, performing arts high school, and it was mandatory. They were like, you're in 6th grade, you put on this clown makeup, and you have your family or whoever make a clown costume for you, and you're going to sing in the show choir. And it was through that, outside of church, where people were kind of like, oh, okay, like this kid can sing, like let's put, you know, her up front. And it was from there I just kind of, I didn't really stop performing. Like people would approach me to sing at churches and stuff like that. But inside I was like hurting, because I'm like, well, I'm sinning. Like, you know, God knows that there's something different about me. And here I am like inspiring these people, and people are feeling you know, like God is using me as this vessel. But it's like, how could God use me if I was so imperfect?
Right. Ooh, you better say that.
That's just how it felt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of community members kind of go through that process of like, I guess at some point even feeling like God isn't for me because of what the naysayers or church hurt may be saying.
Yes.
And in the midst of still singing your songs in the midst of that, right? What was your favorite gospel song to sing?
That's a really tough one. I will say it was probably from around this time of year. I remember I sang Jesus, Oh What a Wonderful Child. Um, and I remember in that moment, like it was this time of year, which Christmas is my favorite. I do love Christmas, even being far from home. I love Christmas so much, and I've had so many joyful times Christmas time. Um, so I think that just that moment of bliss, like the entire like hubbub of Christmas, and like really being able to interpret the song that like Mariah Carey had interpreted, that was really cool for me. I was like, this is this song. I was meant to sing this, you know, Mariah blessed me to sing this song.
Yes. I would actually sing, but we're gonna wait. But I want to ask you some more questions because I want to know how Diamond came to Diamond and came here, right, in Seattle. But I want to ask you more about that, and I had to fix my beard. But we'll be back. You're watching me live. You're watching Me Live in Color.
wonder awaits at Pacific Northwest Ballet's The Nutcracker. Treat your loved ones to the Northwest's favorite holiday tradition at Seattle Center's McCaw Hall. Tickets start at $27. Visit pnb.org.
COVID-19 hurt my income, my health, and my family. We were about to lose our home when we heard we might be eligible for homeowner assistance funds from the government. We called 1-877-894-HOME, and a housing counselor stepped in, talked to our lender, and saved our home. Federal funding details at washingtonhalf.org. That's washingtonhaf.org.
And we're back. You're watching We Live in Color. And I was just eating a Cheeto during the break, so please excuse me. With Miss Diamond Lil. How are you, honey?
I'm good. We were both eating Cheetos.
We were both eating Cheetos during the break. And
I was like, oh, take it.
But in the meantime, like, I know that your journey, and especially coming out of the parts of Huntsville, right? You did college life out there, right?
I did, yeah. So I started college and like straight out of high school, I tried to have that conversation with my family, like, hey, I'd like to take a gap year. And they were just like, yeah, that's not going to happen. But I think the ideal situation would have been for me to go to the Army.
Yeah.
And that was just never going to happen.
Pretty much like a lot of community people out there go straight to the army, right?
But for sure. I mean, aside from being, very visibly queer, I was just also, I knew that I was an artist. So I was like, I don't really have any business doing that or out there. Like, I felt that if I would have gone to the Armory, I was like, I don't know, when you're that young, when you're 17, you're like, but I have to do all this before I'm 20. And like, I can't waste like 2 years of my life in the Army. I'll be 19 and like, I would have been able to do so much. It's like, it just felt like, fine, if I can't just like take some time off and travel, then I'll just go to school.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And what was school life like?
School was cool. I mean, I was doing a vocal performance major at a school that was not an art school. So because I had this training from my middle and high school, it was like, I went in and people were like, oh, well, you've been doing this. So like my theory class was super easy. It was just kind of easy for me to move through. And I wasn't really challenging myself. And so because of that, like, I think that I just kind of fell in with people that really weren't for me. And some things ended up happening that basically kind of derailed my like college career really early. And so it was really tough, but I bounced back and I transferred schools. I mean, honestly, I was gonna
go ahead. We living in color here, so
yeah. Well, I mean, I just will say that, like, in the South, when it comes to drugs and things like that, you don't necessarily have to be in possession of those drugs, or you don't necessarily have to be like really even consuming them at the moment of like you being like caught. You just have to be Black, and there will be consequences. So I just kind of felt that I learned like really early that, like, the police are not for us.
Yeah.
And like, it was not my first time with police. So when this happened in college, it just kind of felt like, well, fuck, I really thought that I thought that I had like, I just never thought that would happen to me. Like when I was young though, like when I was 7, this is like in Alabama still, my grandfather went to the bank. This is back when, before Regions was Regions, back when it was Wachovia. I think even before
I got it.
that.
Yep. Can't even bank there no more.
Right. I'm .com. But my grandfather went into the bank and he had just picked me up from school. And I was in the car by myself. And like, my grandmother, she was a principal. So she would make up these rules. And the rules were really just stuff that she felt like adults shouldn't do to kids. And so I would uphold them as rules. And one rule she told me, she was like, it's illegal for kids to be in the car by themselves. Like, if your mom, no one should leave you in the car by yourself. You need to go in with whoever you're with. That went for my dad, my aunts, all that. Like, don't let them leave you in the car, essentially. But to me, I thought it was like a rule. So my grandfather was like, I'll be right back. I have to make this deposit. And so as he goes in, like a cop just pulls up, I guess, doing his rounds. So me, thinking that it's this rule, I duck down. Next thing I know, not even maybe 3 minutes later, I look up, from like being like kind of in the bottom of the truck. And like eventually at that point, I had just kind of like nestled down there like kids do. I don't know if I had toys or whatever. But I looked up and a cop was pointing a gun like through the window directly at me. And so, like, immediately, of course, I just like start crying. But like the reality of that, to like be that young and to like be looking at the barrel of a gun is just like, it definitely was. And the worst part about it is that, like, when I told my grandparents about it the next day, like, I told my grandfather when he got back, and like, I could just tell that my grandfather believed me, but that like the reality of it was that when he was younger, like, things like that had happened to him and probably worse. And I just felt that he didn't really take it in. And then like I told my grandma the next morning at breakfast, and I remember her being like having to like, in her way of not really. And it was really, really tough. So being older and being in a situation with the police, knowing that like whatever I was doing was not my, like, it wasn't like my weed, it wasn't my like, you know what I mean? It was just my room.
Right.
But I was the one who was arrested, and I was the one who had to like, go through the year of like things that come with being arrested and the sanctions at school. And so it really was just like one of the moments that really brought me into the reality of like, okay, this is what the South is. Like, this is what it revolves around. And now, as a Black young person, you're a part of the system.
Right. And going through that transformation, because me being involved in any with law enforcement of any kind, it's transformed me, and it's transformed many Black folks, triggering, right?
Yeah.
Through that process. How long was that before you moved to Seattle? Did you live in any other states between there?
No, it took 5 years for me to like pretty much get to that point of like, okay, I'm good, I've done. Actually, it didn't take 5 years. I'm sorry. Well, actually, it took about, yeah, I was like, maybe it did. It took about 4 years. I remember I was just doing music and like I was making it, and I was like, Mom, this is something I wrote. She was like, hey, I think you're really good. I think you should go somewhere where people can see you. And she was like, let's move to Seattle. I've been having these dreams. And like me, I have been seeing signs for Seattle. And like I said earlier, we're like woo woo like that. So we were like, this is where all the signs point. And so my mom helped me. I was like living with my sibling and their friend at the time. But we packed up our cars and we like packed up a truck and sent it. And then we just drove for 4 days. And I was able to transfer my job. And so it worked.
Well, that worked perfectly. And then throughout that space, right? Were you ever able to come out to your parents at that time, or was that not till later?
So I never really came out to my parents until I came out as trans. Think that they just kind of assumed things.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, I think
especially the church-led community, right?
Child.
It's like, well, if they ain't gonna talk about it, we ain't gonna talk about it.
Well, the elders will grab you. They'll be like, "The devil wants you." The devil is like, he wants you. You need to be careful. But it was very much that. It was very much like I don't know what the fuck that means. Oh, I'm sorry. Can I say the F word? I shouldn't. I'm sorry, y'all. I don't know what that means, but I also don't know what it really means to be what I am. I don't know what queerness is. So yeah, it was very much like, I don't know. What was the question?
Coming out to family.
Yeah. So I didn't come out throughout that period. I was just kind of like my mom and we had like an understanding. I think she knew that I was like courting men, obviously, but that was kind of that.
Yeah. So even then, when you did have to come out to them as trans, right? Were they able to receive, right? Because the church, I don't know. I felt like when I told my family that was very much in the church, it's like, okay, but we'll just wait a little. It'll wear off for me, but that wasn't the case.
Yeah, isn't that tough? Yeah, because I think that You want so badly for that, like the hallmark reaction of like, we love you
Yeah.
anyways. And then you just kind of want it to be that.
Right.
But in Black families, a lot of the time, especially in church families, it's not like that.
Yeah.
It's a journey of like, well, I don't understand what it means to be queer. I don't understand what, like, I don't have that much interaction, from their perspective. Obviously, they're like, well, I knew gay people, but I only knew them from TV, or like, I only knew that I had like a gay friend in college, or you
Right.
know what I mean? So I think that was kind of my family's thing. When I came out as trans, they were just kind of like, so does this mean you're going to get surgery and like, go through
Wow.
the full gamut? And that was the first question. And I'm just kind of like, as soon as I could talk, I was telling people that I wanted to be a girl.
Wow.
Like I was running around church literally being like, to the girls would be like, do you want to be a girl or something? And I would be like, yeah. Like, wait, is that an option? And of course, when my family found out about that, it was very much like, okay, now the prayer begins.
Yeah.
The journey of prayer, and like the journey of like every time, there's like an altar call or like something even kind of like tailored towards that, we're going to make sure that this child is like prayed over, because we know that they're battling demons. So it was very that.
Oh Lord! But thank God you made it to Seattle.
I guess.
And what year was that when you came to Seattle?
2017. Yeah.
Okay. And how'd you acclimate to Seattle? Because I mean, I see what you're doing now, and it's just fabulous and everything.
Oh,
How was
thank
those
you.
first couple of years coming in to see it? Because I hear, sometimes I hear in Western Washington that we're not as open, but I think we are some open, wonderful people. Shout out to you, wonderful people watching.
Yeah. Well, thank you for asking that. I think that when I first came here, I was just really like, like the fetal position is like when you're like curled like into a ball or whatever. Like imagine that, but like someone that's like curled into themselves as well. Like I was so tightly wound with the things that I had been taught and the things that I had been like made to believe. And so I very slowly was like uncurling and like stretching these parts of myself that like had never really had the chance to breathe. And more importantly than that, I was able to do it in a place where no one really cared. No one really cared if I were something outlandish or things like that. Like people just kind of gave me space to explore in those like moments. So that was just how I acclimated. I went to a lot of events. I showed a lot of support at the beginning, and I'd go to things alone a lot of the time, and I'd go home alone, and I'd drive pretty far because I wasn't able to live in Seattle immediately. I lived in Mill Creek with my mom.
Shout out to everyone out there in Mill
Shout out
Creek.
to Mill Creek.
I don't really know very
Shout
many
out to
people.
Mill Creek. No, right? You said I don't know you, but you're out there. Shout out to Mill Creek. But I definitely was like, okay, I'm gonna get in this car and on my way to Seattle and hopefully meet some people who actually vibe with me. And like when you're going through that process, obviously like everyone doesn't fit, and you've pined to be in circles that really wouldn't have you as a member. And like something that I learned from being in church is that like if you're meant to be somewhere, like you're gonna be there. You know what I mean? God's gonna put you in the right place. It's gonna put the right people in front of you to see you, speak to you. But to me, it was just like it had to be my timing. I didn't believe that. Like I was just like, well, I'm doing all the things right. I'm going to all these things. I'm showing the support and love to these people. Like, why am I not being accepted into these crews? Why is no one hitting me up to hang out? Or why don't I have like a group of friends or things like that? And, it was really tough, but I kept doing it. And then I started singing at karaoke more than anything and just kind of going there.
Okay, now where?
Oh, gosh.
I have to know all the
I
places so I
can't
can write
say.
them down.
No, I can't say because I really need this to be a place that I can like go back and like find refuge.
Okay, so it's the secret place.
Yeah, I was about to
It's
say
secret place?
in the
Okay.
future, like when just in the future, if when I come to visit Seattle, like, being on tour and stuff like that, I need to be able to go to this place and nobody know that I ever went there. But if you know, you know. And I will say that like someone approached me and was like, hey, I'm doing this show. And we're like, highlighting non-binary performers, and I want you to be a part of it. And then like at that time, I didn't really identify explicitly as non-binary. I just identified as like gender fluid. Like I was just answering to any pronouns and like praying to God someone called me she so that I could like, smile
Love
on the
that.
inside and like, so I was just like, you know what? Yeah, let's do it. I didn't have any songs written. I didn't know like what I was gonna do. I mean, I had songs written, but I didn't have anything that I had been like fine tuning or working on. So I was just like, that I have this date that I'm supposed to perform at this thing. By that time, I'll have, a 15-minute set.
Yeah.
And it really kicked it into gear. And then I did that show. And like at that show, someone asked me to do another show. And then at the next show, someone asked me to do another one. And so through that was just kind of how it took off. And then that was how I found community because people were like, oh my gosh, like, you sing, so you sing.
Come join us.
Very that. And I was like, okay. I mean, like, it kind of sucked because I was like, well, was it not enough when I was just like, there? But also, you're Black and like a mostly white area, like you're Black and you're a little strange and like, you're a little Southern. And I'm sure people were just trying to figure out what the vibe was because I didn't know what I was doing.
But you've been walking into that purpose, right? Of everything. So even that waiting period of I would say loneliness and just like what is next? What's next? And then just finding that next in your community people. And all the friends that I've seen you in community with are amazing people. Every single one of them.
Thank you, Deaunte. But you're so right. And I mean, I know you probably had phases like that in your life too, where you're so isolated and you're thinking, what does the future even look like? You know what I mean? Like, what does it look like outside of this loneliness or in this darkness? Like, I think back to some of those times and like, I just felt like I had no direction. I didn't know. And I think that like, there's part of us maybe that's like waiting to be found, waiting to be like plucked and like, for someone to blow the dust off our surface to see what's revealed underneath. But I think that, sometimes like the pressure of that, like I gotta find someone else, I gotta find someone to be around. It's like maybe that forms a diamond.
Yes, right.
Yeah.
It does form a diamond. And we are going to get into more of that diamond forming when we come back, okay? You are watching We Live in Color. Ho, ho, ho.
Join us this holiday season at the Fifth Avenue Theater and feel the power of love overflowing with The Wiz. Filled with soaring soul and R&B songs, it's an effervescent explosion of music, dance, and magic your whole family will love. Ease on down the yellow brick road with Dorothy as she learns home isn't really where you live, it's who you love. The Wiz at the Fifth Avenue Theater, November 19th through December 23rd. Tickets at fifthavenue.org.
COVID-19 hurt my income, my health, and my family. We were about to lose our home when we heard we might be eligible for homeowner assistance funds from the government. We called 1-877-894-HOME, and a housing counselor stepped in, talked to our lender, and saved our home. Federal funding details at washingtonhalf.org. That's washingtonhaf.org.
And we're back. I keep on leaning my head because it just looks interesting. But we're back with Diamond Lil. Now, we were just talking just during the break, and I was just saying I just appreciated you sharing that when you're in isolation, especially with people of our community that sit in that isolation waiting for someone to come knock the dust off. And I was telling you, like, hey, I've been there too, even in the midst of this year. And I just really just appreciated you just being open within that statement.
Thank you, Deontay. It means a lot to hear you say that you relate to it too. I mean, I was telling you even before this started airing that being around you and like seeing how you interact with the community, it really brings a lot of joy to my heart because I think that I just am believing right now, especially more than any time in my life, that so much of who we are around is a reflection of us. And like so many people need to see that reflection of joy to believe in it inside themselves, even if they save it for like those times later when they're alone to test it out. You know what I mean? But at least they were like, they saw someone who wasn't afraid to go that extra mile and to say hi or to like reach out and touch them and say, I see you and I feel you and you deserve this smile and this love.
It's those reaches are real.
Child,
And
yes.
you know when it is and when it isn't.
Child, yes.
Screen look. But but the reach, right? You know, I think the reach is from so many community people, right? We have great community people that do the reach. And
Right.
an organization that I speak of very highly of, and I mean, since I started this show, has been Lavender Rights. And can you tell us about some of the work that you do there?
Yes, I can. I'm so glad we're talking about this. So at Lavender Rights, I do outreach and volunteer coordination, and I don't want to get emotional. You can ask anybody there. We start talking about something deep. Farron's the first one crying, but I just will say it's amazing to be in a space that upholds the voices of like Black trans femmes and gender diverse people, and like really elevates their voices and empowers us. I've never been in an organization that empowered me in this way, and through that, it's like empowered me to empower other people like me. Because when you're like finding your way through that darkness, you're like, okay, I know I'm gonna get there, but like, then what? Like, what about the people like me who are just like watching and like not ready to like take those steps themselves? Like, how do I reach them?
And reach y'all do. And I love, and it's not just the reach towards the clients that you serve in community outreach, right? It's with each other. Like this weekend, I've seen y'all give the one. Well, first of all, congratulations to Randy Ford. Congratulations to Fred Hutch organization, and congratulations to Coach T, who all received different awards. And I just, when Randy went up there to receive their award for the Larry Gossett Community Advocacy of the Advocate of the Year award, y'all faces was just like y'all were on stage. It was just like y'all won, and just embracing your sister on that stage was just amazing. Just watching the sisterhood in the space at that table was just amazing.
Thank you, Deontay. I really appreciate that perspective of it. Because I think that when we're in it, we all really like we've gotten a lot of chances to bond, and to us, like there's very like there is a. I mean, I think that like sometimes in organizations, like there's a lot of toxicity associated with the word family. Um, but I do think that like as Black trans people, like and like gender diverse people, we really need that. We then the support that's like come from each other. It's like it's been very natural, and so in that moment, I think that what you were just seeing is just like our pride in us, and like also it was just really cool to see someone like Randy being honored in that way because she's been doing work for a really long time. So shout out Randy.
Shout out Randy. For the 48th time, I would love for you to come on the show. She's so busy.
She is. I'm telling you.
But what are some of the work? What are some of the work that community can be able to support with Lavender Rights, as well as some of the things that we could be able to not only support but spread awareness to?
Absolutely. I think that a major thing is that I think that a lot of the Black community doesn't really account for trans and gender diverse people in their statistics. I think that a lot of the time we're kind of, put into the umbrella category. But there are like Black trans women and femmes, like specifically, need a lot of attention in those things because of like the discrimination they face in the workplace, you know what I mean, in carceral systems. And I think that my call would be to like for organizations, especially cis organizations or organizations that are not LGBTQ oriented, to listen to trans voices and to make more spaces for trans people to, contribute to policy.
Yeah.
And that's all I'll get into on that. I was like, I don't want to get too deep,
right.
like, but I just think that, making space and including trans people in the conversation is step one.
Yeah.
And through that, I think that, people can hear from us so that we can help us as well.
Yeah. And that's real. I've seen a lot of, and I think that communities see a lot of the white-led community orgs, LGBTQIA, right? We'll jump in the space and say, like, yes, we advocate for that's allies, and we, of course, we'd love to have an ally, but it'd be more important if we put us front and center, especially just as opposed to adding us to work for you for the grant. Put us in front and center to lead the grant and to lead our community members in the areas of actually awareness and advocacy for our LGBTQIA community members,
Absolutely. I think that, like, there's the question, it behooves any person in those positions that is reaching out to trans people to have those voices. Like, what are your intentions? What do you hope to learn from this space? And also, like, are you demanding more labor from these trans, gender diverse, queer people that then you would really be willing to, like, compensate them for? You know what I mean? Get these people in these spaces, compensate them well, make them feel, that their opinions and their input is valued. I just think that, like, a lot of what we do at Lavender Rights Project is, like, revolves around the idea of intersectionality. And, Kimberly Crenshaw says that, like, when we really, like, help the most marginalized people, like, it can do nothing but help everyone above them. And so that's why we focus on Black trans women and femmes specifically.
Shout out to Lavender Rights.
Shout out to Lavender Rights.
And you also perform, correct?
I do, yes, yeah.
And beautifully, I must say. And you just recently won a pageant this year, or a competition this year.
Yeah, I did.
Well, which one? I love how she smiles. So what was it called?
It was called So You Think You Can Drag, and it was really fun. It was just a great opportunity to just. What was cool is that, like, in the pageant, there were just so many amazing Black artists, and we just got to get together every week and be Black and, like, do really cool stuff. And, like, I had a great time. I got to expand, a lot of my artistry. I got to perform in many different ways. There was a week where I got to sing, which was just so cool. And, as someone who came from, like, singing first and then started doing drag, I was like, I wonder when these two worlds will collide. And so it was great to have that opportunity. But it was a cool thing, shout out to.
I wish I knew how to sing. That's just one talent I just never been good. I've been a great lip syncer. I could lip sync.
Yes.
I could lip sync. One day you guys will see me do a show, but
Yeah.
I could lip sync for my life, but
.com.
So are you have any upcoming shows coming up?
Actually, I think I'm just wrapping up the year. But I'd love it if, a lot of communities supported a show that happens at Unicorn every Thursday, Wednesday. It's called Black Carousel, and it is an all Black cast. We just did a show where we did the entire Renaissance album, no stops.
Well, what songs you do?
Oh, okay.
I need to know.
No, .com. Okay, so everyone, if you know that Church Girl is, like, my song.
Okay.
I do that one all the time outside of it. But for that specific show, I did Alien Superstar.
Love Alien Superstar.
Oh, deeply.
Oh, wait a minute. I seen one of your performance. Shout out to King, because you can just go. One of my friends goes.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you were like, you got to see this. Alien Superstar, I did Move, and then I also got to do America Has a Problem, which was really fun. We're gonna do a part 2, so keep an eye out for that. I'd love for you to come to that.
Okay, well, I will definitely come.
Yeah, I think that album is so big for us.
First of all, if it doesn't win Album of the Year, it's just going to be a whole. We're going to do. If it doesn't win Album of the Year, we're going to do a whole We Live in Color special. So,
do you think they would do that to be again?
I think that they would do that.
I don't think they would do that to her.
I think that they would do it. I mean, you have to also think about Adele's album. Like, you can't take away Adele is Adele.
We love Adele.
Adele's pure sales.
We love Adele. We love what Adele has done. But I will say, in terms of, like, culture and, like, impact, nobody does it like Beyonce.
Nobody.
And I mean, also what this album taught us is that Beyonce is really cool. Like, she's actually, like, cool. Like, she's not cool in, like, the, oh, this person's rich and has access. Like, no, like, Beyonce's tapped in. And I will say this until I'm underground. Beyonce with these visuals is going to come out and she's going to Vogue down.
Yeah. I'm thinking this coming Christmas.
You think so?
I think it's going to be a Christmas.
I'm going to spontaneously combust when Beyonce does a dip.
Okay.
Yeah, when Beyonce hits a dip.
I think I want to hang out with you. Like you come over
Let's
and
do
like let's
it.
just watch and
Yes.
just give a whole thing, right?
I love that. I love that.
I mean, this is the first time I actually ever talked about music, and I'm such a big music fan. So we might have to circle back for another episode to do like some album reviews. But I did want to do this. You know, we here at A Live in Color, we do We Live in Color tribute, where we tribute someone who is here, either here with us or not, that has helped pave the way to help you in the space where you're at.
Oh, wow.
If you had to pick someone, who would that be?
Wasn't expecting that question. I think I would say the person like who is the reason why like I am who I am today. It would probably be my mother. And yeah, without her, I wouldn't be here in Seattle. I wouldn't have gotten to like pursue my dreams and do what I'm doing now. So
You want to thank her? There's a camera right there.
Thank you, Mommy. Thank you for believing in me and taking me across the country so that I could follow my dreams. And I promise I'm going to make you really proud.
That was beautiful. Usually I tell people about it, but I sprouted that up on you.
It's okay. It's okay. I like stuff
but
like
it's
that.
just so important for us to, when we say we live in color, there's just so many people who've helped affirm for us, so then we can affirm for others and ourselves. So shout out to your mama, because you bore a real one.
No, she's the best. Yeah, my mom is a trip. She's a Libra, so
Okay.
I mean, if you know, you
Libras.
know.
Oh, that's a whole
Child.
episode. But
I know, for real though. Yeah, Aquarius next too. Don't let them off the hook.
Okay, so before we get out of here, first of all, we're in these wonderful attires. So, what has been your best holiday gift that you've ever got?
Oh man, I was actually just having this conversation. I think when I was really young, when I was like 9, I got a GameCube, like a platinum GameCube, and I just remember being so over the moon. I remember coming into the room and being like, "This is major!" Like a whole game system, because my family didn't really support video games, so that was it. So I would say my GameCube, not to be a nerd, but
Yes. I don't know what mine was.
yeah, I was gonna ask you.
I remember this one Christmas. My mom got us bikes, and
Oh yeah, that's
me
a
and my
big
little
gift.
brother. I have a twin, so me and my twin brother. Bikes, and I just remember me and my brother just being like really, really, really excited. Shout out to Lian. One day he'll come on the
Yeah,
show.
shout out to Deaunte. I want to see you two in the same room
Yeah,
now.
oh my gosh, trust
Yeah.
me, we are. One day we'll have an episode of Brother to Brother, but it'll be something.
Yeah, he's gonna come in dressed as Santa.
Right.
You're setting me up.
But I want to thank you so much for coming on today. And you'll definitely be back on this show.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to thank you. You are you are my last guest this year. Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm so happy because when I first started this show, I think I was one episode in and I met you. And I was just like, hey, let's chat. And it was even before that. We've been seeing each other in passing, and it's just great to end this year of just coming full circle with you, meet us in these Christmas outfits, wanting to be festive
Festive as we
wanting
can
to
be.
bring holiday cheer. But I'm so glad that this diamond is here.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for coming on the show. Black Media Matters, and so do Black Diamonds. So thank you.
Thanks for shining with me, Deaunte.
See, now that's real love, y'all. Now, in the meantime, thank y'all so much. Next week, we will have the best of. You'll see some of my favorite clips of this wonderful year that we've had living in color. And we might even have a preview or a flyer for some events that we have coming up. We are Converge. We live in color. And I'll see y'all next week. Ho, ho, ho.
Converge Media produces culturally relevant content for Black and urban audiences. Our coverage is raw, transparent, and objective, praised by community leaders, government officials, and residents. Support Converge Media today via Venmo, Cash App, or PayPal at Converge Media.